Welcome to Healing Echoes. Today we have with us Thomas Curran Jr., a dedicated Marine Sergeant veteran with 9 years of service. Born in New Jersey, he is not only a father of 5, but a loving husband. Thomas is an IT manager at ITW. He is passionate about human design and nature, and he will be joining us today to share insights on overcoming childhood and military-related trauma. He's also a very special guest because he's my husband.
Hey, thank you for having me on your podcast. I really appreciate it. I know this is really a special, it's really special to you, and I really appreciate being part of it. And not just on the wings when sometimes you need to editor.
Not the backup?
Not just the backup editor when you get frustrated with the editing program.
Yeah, well, I appreciate that role too, but I'm really excited to have you on as a guest.
Well, thank you.
It's been in the back of my mind since I started. So
yeah.
I'm excited for you to share your story with everyone else and not just me now.
I just realized that I'm wearing a New Jersey Devil shirt as you're like, born in New Jersey, and I just was like, oh,
Can
yeah.
you tell?
You're like, whoops. I guess you kind of started your podcast kind of just telling your story, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I have I have multiple mental disorders that I struggle with. Some of which can be attributed to military, and some of which probably attributed to some maybe childhood trauma, and then some of it's just I was born that way, right? I was raised I was born in New Jersey and raised to I have biologically three siblings, the four of us, and then my dad kind of adopted children.
Yeah,
as
very
he went
blended
on.
family.
Yeah, and kind of blended it on. But biologically, 3 full-blooded, biological and then a half sister. But she's just my sister, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
I was, like I said, born in Jersey. My mother was a drug addict and alcoholic. My father was a police officer, and it's just he was never there. So she was just always inebriated or something, and then when she wasn't in that state, like they'd be fighting or something. They had kids very young. Well, my mother had kids young.
Yeah.
My dad was a little older, but I remember her always complaining that she never really had a chance to go out and party. Like that was one of the big fights or whatever. But I think I don't remember a lot of the time that I had as a child. I have memory gaps from when I was about 4. Like I had my first memory of 4, which is my mother lying to me. But then I have then I don't really remember much. I have bits and pieces, maybe a trip or something that we did that was fun, but like
something that stuck.
Something that stuck, right? I don't really remember anything until around age 12, 13, 11. Part of it, I mean, and it's highlights like I remember fighting. I remember my mother would buy me alcohol and drugs, saying like, oh, I know the good drug dealers. I know which ones aren't going to lace your stuff or whatever. Right. Meanwhile, she's walking around with like aluminum pipe, that she fashioned out of,
She's trying to get your affection in the only way she knew how, probably.
Yeah, but they divorced my father and mother, and then my dad remarried his first wife, and we moved in with them in Florida, and she never really liked me. I think she did toward the end once I was an adult and out of the house. She kind of understood me better, and we kind of, I grew to love her eventually, but I remember a lot of the early interactions being very negative. I've never been diagnosed, but I'm 100% sure I have ADHD, and I think I'm ADHD. I mean, I think I think you have.
Self-diagnosis is valid, yes.
Right. But my oldest has autism, and I kind of was like, well, it's biological and typically through the dad, right? And
it's how most adults find out. Yeah.
Yeah, and then so I'm looking at me, and then I'm looking at my dad, and I'm like, oh. Yeah. I don't know if I feel like a lot of people who were, my dad's like, he's about to be 69.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like a lot of people who were autistic then,
Mm-hmm.
there was like religious things they caught on to, so I was raised, raised Catholic, Irish Catholic, so it was a lot of saints, and
Mm-hmm.
my grandmother was, had a wall of saints, and another wall of clowns, which was creepy as hell. But she had a wall of saints, and I would pray to Saint Anthony if I lost something,
Right.
which is very, like, if you think about it now, it's kind of pagan-y,
Mm-hmm.
because you're praying to, like, the saint and not God or whatever. But
yeah, it's that generation's fixations were a lot of times were religious.
Yeah, or
we
trains.
have different, or trains. we have different fixations now.
Yeah.
But especially, knowing your dad personally, more than likely, is some sort of neurodivergent, although he doesn't. I think he's coming to terms with it.
I think he is.
But, I know, like, myself as well, and then, obviously, you listen to the episodes, a couple of the people that I've interviewed as adults, when they got their adult diagnosis, it was because they took their children to get diagnosed.
Right.
So it's very common, so it makes sense that with your oldest, you looked at her and were like, oh, connecting the dots.
Connecting the dots for sure. I do remember, like I said, bits and pieces, when I was, like, in 3rd grade. I went to Catholic school when I was in 3rd grade. And I left after 3rd grade because of this incident. My teacher at the time, I don't even remember her name.
Right.
I don't remember any of my teachers' names, really.
It just didn't stick, yeah.
No. But, it was a parent-teacher conference, and my dad and mother were there. But all I remember is playing with my sister in the hallway while I was outside and they were talking.
Mm-hmm.
And my dad was screaming at this teacher. He's not like that now. He's not very, but he used to be very loud and aggressive.
He had his own growth journey.
He did, yeah. But he was screaming at her saying, like, there's nothing wrong with my son. How dare you, blah, blah, a lot of F words, a lot of, it's in New Jersey at the time, I think we talked about it last week, how my uncle just F this, F that in front of everybody.
Yeah, that culture is very much.
Right.
Yeah.
So there was profanity, yeah. So there was a lot of cursing, but then, so it was a lot of denial. So a lot of, like, if there was something wrong with me, there was denial. So I kind of grew up with that. If there's something wrong, no, there's not. You're good. You're fine. Yeah. There's nothing wrong with my son. He's fine. He's good. That was a lot of the. He's smart. I don't know what you're talking about. He's not dumb. He's not.
Yeah, because they correlated to that. I was just going to catch you and say, because you said if there was anything wrong with me. There was nothing wrong with you.
Right.
But that's the wording they use, and you still incorporate it sometimes. If they thought, whatever the teachers were saying, they thought it was something wrong with you. They thought you might have ADHD or maybe even autism. They just didn't know what it was at the time.
Right.
They just knew your brain worked different, and your dad was like, there's nothing wrong with him. And that's why they didn't get you the help they needed.
Yeah. But, kind of growing up in a very structured and, having autism, I was drawn to and also having that home life being all over the place, right?
Yeah, very unstable.
I didn't say this now, but, like, before, I don't really talk to my mother at all. I basically lost contact with her when I moved to Florida.
Yeah.
She moved to Florida. I saw her maybe once or twice after that. I stayed in contact with my grandmother, her mom. I talked a lot, visited her, but she passed away, so it's not. So a lot of my link to that side of the family is gone.
It's gone, yeah.
But so I had a lot of turmoil, a lot of things going on. So I really was looking for structure, and in high school I found ROTC, and I excelled at it, and I didn't even try, and that's why I think I enjoyed it, because I didn't really have to do much. I just was myself, which was I followed the rule, like this is what we had to do.
You were naturally good at it.
And I became the leader at the high school. Was the group commander. It was an Air Force ROTC. So, but I was the head of it. I was the head of the color guard. I helped paint the classroom blue and the jets and everything.
Yeah.
So
Cats.
Our cats just like fought. I did just yell at one before because she came in here trying to find me. Because when you do the podcast, she doesn't really come here, but she's like attached to me.
She has. I've had to edit it out. If she realizes I'm in here, she'll try to get in the door and scratch at the door. So.
Yeah, Artemis, sir, the hunter.
She's your favorite. It's okay.
It's okay. So
you excelled at ROTC, and that kind of led
me to the. So I got out of high school, and I was with my ex-wife. Mm-hmm. She was. We were together in high school. Well, relatively. I got out of high school. She was still in, even though she was older than me. She got held back a grade. Mm-hmm. So it was like a weird.
It was switch swap.
Yeah. So I was going to college. She was a senior in high school. We were dating or whatever. Mm-hmm. Anyway, I did a lot of minimum wage jobs because I didn't really know what to do, and I tried going to college, and I can't. And I think it's a lot of ADHD is like I follow the dopamine, and once it runs out, I can't do it anymore. So I was in college.
Not a long-term thing.
Yeah, and I did a couple classes. It was fun, and then all of a sudden it was like the college is right next to the movie theater, next to the mall, and I'm like, let's go to the movies. Let's go to the mall instead. Yeah. And I got so I dropped out of college. Did a lot of minimum wage jobs all over the place, and then my ex-wife at the time got pregnant, and then so we kind of moved to Mississippi to be closer to her family. She has a lot of trauma too. So I'm not sure why she decided to do that. But we were like, okay, I kind of went along with the ride. I kind of, most of my life, I think because of the trauma and because of just being conflict avoidant, because of ADHD, rejection, blah, 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 wow.
Rejection,
sensitive, dysmorphia. Yeah, whatever.
Dysmorphia.
Yeah. So
I got you.
Thank you. I've always been kind of a people pleaser.
Yeah.
And
we were just talking about.
And how I can't really. Most of my life I kind of just went along with, what do the rules say? Oh, let's do that, or what's best for everybody else, so that we can avoid conflict.
Especially after in a family unit, and then like getting married and having a child, you put that above your own.
Right, and that's where so I got married to her in Alabama. Because in Mississippi you have to be 21, and I was 20.
So yeah,
so
over state lines.
State lines to Alabama.
Oh, good God.
But yeah, so even then I was still doing minimum wage jobs, and then she got pregnant again with my second child, and
minimum wage isn't
going to do it. So I was looking for something. I tried joining the Air Force because that was what the ROTC I was in.
Yeah.
And I was like, I know it relatively. I know the things are a little different, but
yeah.
I tried going in, but because of me having minimum wage, and at the time it was like 2008, 2009, it was very much like the recession time. Mm-hmm. I had a lot of debt.
Yeah.
And credit cards, and I was, like I said, 20, 21. I wasn't very responsible.
Most 21-year-olds aren't.
So I didn't have a good credit in the Air Force, and they really were like, oh, well, I don't even know if you can get secret clearance, because I don't know if you know this or listeners know. They do base a lot of the clearances on credit scores.
I didn't know that.
Well, because one of the factors is that you are more willing to take money from another government or someone else because you were so debt, like so much in debt.
It changed. Yeah,
it changes how
makes
you think,
sense.
right? And it makes sense.
The risk potential isn't one they're willing to take.
Right. But at the time, they didn't want to look and see if I could get a secret clearance, so I didn't join the Air Force. Then I went to the Navy, and they told me I already had dependents, didn't want to do it. So the Marines were like, "What did you say?" I'll do paperwork.
We'll sign you up.
So that's why I joined the Marines. It wasn't like a lot of people join because it's like, oh, I need to be the best. I need to be the hardest. I just so happened to fall into, this is the one, this is the easiest for me. So that's where I'm going.
That's what,
Instead of trying to fight for something harder, like the Air Force or something, they were willing to put in for me. And, they lied a couple things. I mean, recruiters will lie.
Yeah.
And so much so that my recruiter actually reached out to me while I was in the Marines and apologized to me.
Yeah. You just recently told me that.
Yeah. I was in, because, long story short, I was supposed to go for one job.
Mm-hmm.
That job required a top secret clearance.
Mm-hmm.
And when I got to boot camp, they're like, "Well, I don't know. You're not doing it."
Yeah.
The questioning went, "When's the last time you had a beer?"
Right.
While I was in boot camp, and I was like, the day before I left, I had a beer. I was like, "Well, you have debt, and you're willing to pay money for a beer." I was like, I didn't equate them to the same thing. I was just like, it's a food item. I was just,
Yeah.
So he's like, "I'm not even doing your paperwork." So I had an open contract, and because of that, I kind of got flopped around a while. And I wound up going into computer stuff, kind of IT manager, what I'm doing today.
Yeah.
But because of that, a lot of the clearance flops, it took me a long time to get even a secret clearance. And I was stuck in 29 Palms because that's where you do the communication school.
Mm-hmm.
Is in 29 Palms, California, which is not. There is not 29 palms. We call it 29 stumps because it's all desert. Like there's no trees.
Oh
like it's next to Joshua Tree, which is the name of the town, but like they have Joshua trees there.
Yeah, not
they're not like palm trees. Anyway,
that's funny.
Yeah, but I was there for 9 months, and the schooling is only 5 or 4 or 5.
Wow.
So I was stuck there, and just the timing and everything. I missed my second kid's birth. Because of the training and stuff, so like...
Yeah, he won't let you forget that.
No, he's 11 now, and he brings it up anytime there's like a talk about birth.
Any segue to remind you.
No, you weren't there. I know, I was in a little hole in North Carolina, because I was doing combat training at the time. I was in a frozen hole while he was born. That was... We just got done with a hike, actually, and I got in a hole, and then I think he was a staff sergeant.
Yeah.
With knocked on my helmet. Like, Curran, you have a phone call.
Oh God. Yeah. And it's a baby being born.
Well, yeah, I didn't know. They said it was the Red Cross. I assumed it was my child being born.
Right.
However, but I had no clue what if it was someone being hurt.
Yeah.
So he was. I don't even know where I went.
In the middle of talking about how
I missed the birth.
You missed Colton's birth, kind of the beginning of your military journey.
Yeah. So it took a real emotional toll on me because a lot of people who know me, I'm super family oriented.
Very.
Like it is my core.
You get choked up talking about it today.
To my core, like I love my children, all of them, and like so I don't like miss that I wasn't there.
Yeah, you put all that responsibility on yourself.
Yeah, so so it took a big toll on me, and then while I was in training, like it took a while for me to like even get over that.
Yeah.
I obviously still not over it. I'm over here choking up a little.
Yeah, well, that's okay.
I mean, I did get to see him right after I got out. He was, from combat training. He was about 12 days old.
Yeah.
So I got to see him then, and that was nice for about 10 days. Then I went back off. I didn't see him again until he was 5 months old.
Yeah.
And, my ex-wife was nice enough to fly out there.
Bring him to me.
Just so I could see him.
As the aspects of one parent being in the military that a lot of people don't talk about. It's very hard on the family unit. So
we, after that got done, my training, got reunited back in North Carolina, which is where I was stationed at Cherry Point at first.
Mm-hmm.
And that unit was probably one of my favorite units. It was like the most like a family. Yeah. I still I'm Facebook friends with a lot of the people there still. Yeah. I don't really talk to. I don't really reach out to a lot of people, so I don't really talk to a lot of people because that's. Yeah,
but you still have that connection.
Yeah.
You have a hard time reaching out.
I have a terribly hard time reaching out to people, unless it's like an offhand comment. I would give compliments all day or.
Yeah. You like bringing other people up.
I love it.
But taking that step to reach out is hard for you. What aspect of because you were in for 9 years, so it's quite a bit of time, but what aspects were the most traumatizing for you in the military? So I left the military with PTSD. According to the military, it's like major depression with PTSD inklings without putting the PTSD in there because
I wasn't technically under fire at the time, so they don't categorize
the military doesn't see it as PTSD without there being being under
getting
fire.
shot at.
That's what I mean by fire.
Yeah. So, but what got me there was...
I was going to pause. I know. Interrupting you is a bad idea. But people have talked about this before, and as someone with CPTSD, I think it's important to point out because a lot of people thought that PTSD was something only veterans could have.
Right.
Because they thought it was an in-combat thing. It's post-traumatic stress disorder, which means any traumatic event.
Right.
So you can have PTSD and major depression without ever having been under fire. Continue.
Yeah.
Without ever being in the military.
So, part of my hardest time, honestly, with the military, was my weight, and I was always on the high end of the weight for my height.
For the military.
For the military. So no matter, I had to be 180 at 5'8", which is doable, but it was really hard for me. I have very thick thighs that are just muscly, and things like that. But like at the same time, it wasn't. I think just genetic wise, I have a hard time kind of being.
Yeah, everybody's body is different, handles weight differently.
Right. So I was always not eating. I was always under pressure to be losing weight. When I was even in the Cherry Point, in my first station, I was struggling really hard. I mean, I would spend a day in the sauna after drinking magnesium citrate the night before, so that I would be completely gone. Yeah. I'd come out and my kidneys would hurt.
Yeah, because you're just filtering everything out.
I have no water. I have nothing left. Right. So, I mean, it's very traumatic to the body, and I was doing that for years. Yeah. Because I couldn't keep it off. Yeah. I would come close. I would always be close. I would always be like 183, 185.
Yeah, but they want it even.
It had to be even 180, right? So, but I bring that up because when I was deployed to Bahrain, the colonel that was there, who was, I worked in a, it's not very typical I was like in a general shop, so like I was working with very high up people all the time. Even my first unit and my last unit, it was just, one was a G shop and one I was with Central Command. So like, so when I was in Bahrain, I had the colonel directly. I mean, there was a lieutenant, but he was, whatever, he never there. The colonel was always telling me what to do. Right. As a sergeant, which is weird. If you
know anything about the military.
Right. Why is the colonel telling the E5 what to do? Like, where is the staff sergeant? What's happening?
Yeah.
So, anyway, he would constantly berate me about my weight, which is typical for the. I got over that. It wasn't. I was used to that. Yeah. But it got to the point where he was telling me things like, "I'm gonna get my other Marines killed. You're gonna I was getting yelled at every single day, constantly about how my weight was, and it wasn't like I was even 190. Yeah. It was a constant, and it was to the point where he told me I shouldn't be driving. I need to be running or walking to the base. Yeah. There was one point where I'm gonna back up a little. Yeah. I was an IT guy for there, and almost everyone else there was administration. And then there was one operations person who would clean the trucks, right, or something like that, right? So, but I was the only IT guy. I was a shop to myself, and basically, but because I was an E5, I still had to sort of look over the other ones, even though they had other NCOs for there. But just because I was there, which is typical, you're an E5. Look at what they're doing. But I mean, there was one time where the lines weren't straight, and he's over there throwing stuff and telling me dependency. That's not the right word either. Complacency kills, which is, yes, it does, but not about a ruler line.
Not where there's not.
There was and I want to emphasize this point where it's not like just he was yelling. There was screaming,
He was
throwing.
Yeah.
There was just, it was like
he was having a complete meltdown
over lines, and that just to reiterate, kind of show how little it took to set him off.
Yeah.
So my weight was like, I was gonna get him killed, is what he felt like. Like I was.
Yeah, he was blowing it out of proportion is an understatement. The mental.
I mean, there was times where I was like in my office and he was like at the door just screaming at me. I was in the shop all by myself with just him because he needed to redo the tile in the shop because he didn't like it. Yeah. And like I had to watch it, and he was just like screaming, "How could you do this?"
Right.
There was never like camaraderie there. It was just a lot of screaming. So I came out with a lot of, and the environment as well. Being in, it's a very surreal experience when you're going to another country. There's a cultural shock that I don't think anyone really realizes. I've been to other countries. I've been to, as a kid, I went to Ireland and Scotland and Wales. I was very lucky to do that. We weren't rich, but I got sponsored by people in the community. It was like some sort of
exchange
student ambassador program.
Yeah.
So I was very lucky to do that, but
still a culture shock when you were in the military.
Yeah, because in there it was very typical. I mean, I grew up in America, and it's a Western culture is very prevalent in England and Ireland. It's the same kind of culture.
Right.
But when you're in a Middle Eastern country, it's a very new culture shock. You're scared because you don't know, one, how to talk to anybody, what's the right custom, and there's dumpsters on fire, you hear gunshots all the time, and things that, like in Florida, like I heard gunshots, okay, I know it's Florida, but like I'm in another country, I hear things like that.
It's just very unsettling.
There's parts of the country you're not allowed to go to because of red lines, because you could be hurt, or stuff like, so like I'd always be constantly where I was, what street, because it would be
guard.
Yeah, it would be one street was fine and the next street is not fine, and it's very much like
always on edge, not just on guard.
So I spent that whole time on edge, and I didn't get rest, right? And so, or like I got nightmares from it all. I would imagine at the time. I just talked about how my family's so important to me.
Yeah.
At the time, I just labeled terrorists because, like, I didn't really. I had dreams that they would come and take my kids.
Yeah, you were just terrified of any possible
everything,
losing your family in any way.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can imagine.
So I came out of the military kind of beaten down, right? Yeah. But at the same time, I think what didn't help, I didn't really bring it up before, but like my ex-wife isn't diagnosed narcissist, but I really feel like
at least has some very narcissistic behaviors.
Yeah, right. And she beat me down a lot. We were married for 13 years, and it was a lot of like narcissistic abuse.
Yeah.
That I had to constantly. She would just constantly go through my phone, constantly look at my Google history. Like there's just always looking for something to see something wrong with me, even if it wasn't like. If I scrolled on Facebook and a video played too long of someone shaking their butt,
then it was like,
and it showed up in my played because it just that was a fight, and she would look and find it, and
we've talked about that, especially with narcissistic abusers. They'll look for things, and what a lot of people don't understand with that kind of abuse is like, if they're looking for something, they're gonna find something that's gonna fit enough for them to attack you about it.
Right. And I'm not saying I was a perfect husband at the time.
No, bro.
I'm I was going through a lot. I was very depressed. I had suicidal tendencies coming out of the military. I actually spent a month in a mental hospital because I had suicidal ideations. They kind of put it towards psychosis because at the time I was visually seeing myself. I have a very my imagination is like,
you're neurodivergent.
I'm neuro, yeah. My imagination is gone wild all the time.
Yeah.
But like I would see myself. It looked like a real person.
Yeah.
Killing myself.
So they labeled it as psychosis.
Yeah. So like it was very like even at the mental hospital it was like it's because I couldn't handle the things happening around me anymore.
Yeah.
I didn't feel like I had any kind of. I think.
Yeah.
That's what it was. It's like at that point the only thing I could do is end it.
Yeah, that felt like your only option. Obviously there was other kind of abuses, but especially when it comes to like the military, and then even while you were in the military but coming out and coming home to that, they were both military and home life, both were very like mental warfare. It was mental abuse, so it was just constantly mentally breaking you down. And I always say, especially because I've had physical and mental and emotional, like it's never a comparison, but people really underestimate that mental abuse. It literally can make you feel like you're gonna snap and just break. People do break. I've broke.
And there have been times that I did. And there was, prominently I can remember 2 times where I really thought I was going to end it.
Yeah.
Both times driving in my car.
Yeah.
It's easy. I think people don't really see, when you're spiraling.
Yeah.
It isn't, none of it makes sense to someone who isn't there.
Yeah.
I mean, if you haven't felt it, like, it doesn't, okay, just stop. Stop thinking, what are you doing? Why are you thinking that way?
You can't, it's not,
It's not, so when you start spiraling and you just, I did this, and then that turned to that, and that turned to that.
It literally is a spiral.
And I know this is for a lot of people, but for me too, I think a lot while I'm driving, even while the music's playing, kind of thing. So I think that's part of why it's kind of got into myself. And
well, you're alone as well, so you're kind of there with your thoughts.
And then even and the second, so the first time I was just on the road, but then the second, and I was I felt like I needed to crash.
Yeah.
Like it wasn't like I wanted to. It was something that needed to. This was it. This
needs to happen.
I'm done. There's nowhere else out. And then the second time I was on the phone with my ex-wife, because we were going through some issues, not related to that.
Yeah.
It was related to. So, the last couple of years of our marriage, she definitely kind of put up a false front.
Yeah.
And didn't want to. It was like too hard to say like, hey, I don't really love you anymore.
Yeah, she's pretending.
She was just pretending because it was easier. I made more money at the time. It was very like. Yeah. She was comfortable.
Yeah.
So she didn't really express. I know I'm like all over the place.
It's okay.
She didn't really express her, what she really felt, and we kind of moved into polyamory because of that.
Yeah, I've talked about that before. How we were both polyamorous.
Yeah, and I think polyamory is great for people who can do it.
As long as they're ethical. Yes.
And they're ethical, and it's fine. But it wasn't for that. She wanted to just we started swinging.
Yeah.
And then it moved to polyamory, and she found the first guy she dated, she latched onto.
Yeah.
And she's still with that guy, which, good for them.
Yeah, it is good.
But, she basically transferred any love that was there to him.
Yeah, so for somebody who was already struggling, you now feel abandoned.
I felt abandoned, and it brought up, because it was right around 12, 13 years old. I felt abandoned by my mother.
Yeah, because that's when she left.
And that's when she left. She's like, she said the words, I don't want to be a mom. So
you feel discarded.
I felt discarded, right? And then, again, 13 years later.
With your wife.
With
she's
my
leaving.
wife. She's like, I felt abandoned again.
Yeah. It very easily could lead to a spiral. Well, especially if you weren't fully healed. Not that you ever fully healed from things. From the abandonment issues. And then it's kind of repeating itself. It's very easy to see why you would spiral.
Yeah, and then it, but I think part of it too, part of being like autistic is like you want the truth. And like, I knew that there was something wrong. I'm very intuitive emotionally with people. Mm-hmm. That's partially because of trauma, and partially I think just I'm born that way.
Yeah, it's a survival instinct.
Right. And, like I knew something was off and she wasn't telling me, and I'm like, so I tried to do that. We tried going to therapy, but if you don't...
You have to want.
You have to want it. Anyway, I say all that so it's like I was in a really dark place because I felt like my story was what I thought was real, and I'm being told no, that's wrong.
Yeah.
This isn't true, and I'm like, oh, okay, and I'm like, well, wait a minute, how come I don't, like
you're just completely lost.
Yeah, then like if what I'm saying is wrong, then how do I still feel this way?
Yeah.
Then why don't I not feel any love from you? What is the?
Yeah.
She's like, oh well, and then it was very like I was overbearing because I was like, I don't feel love. We need to go do something.
You're trying.
I kept trying. Like, can we hug more? Can we do something? I don't want to be touched anymore. This is too much. So it was a lot of that. Anyway, it was a lot of being told I was wrong about something, even though I knew something was right. And it brought me to the point where I couldn't find another way out because I was so committed to making it work.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know how else.
Yeah.
I didn't think I thought at the time that if my kids could use the life insurance money or whatever more so than me because I am a wreck.
Yeah.
At the time, right?
Yeah, you didn't see the worth in yourself.
No, I didn't. So she called. I was in the hospital. I drove to the VA hospital because I didn't know where else to go. I was going to kill myself. I had this need to do it right then, and I was like, in the back, I didn't want to, but like I felt like I needed to.
You felt like you had to.
I had to, and so I went to the VA because I needed help.
You've told me this story before where they didn't really do anything.
They didn't really do anything. I was over there just bawling my eyes out because I didn't know I didn't want to die.
Yeah.
And all they did was like, okay, well, your wife's here. She showed up. Do you want to go to her? I was like, I don't know. Is that gonna help? Like, what are, And they're like, she's like, I'll keep him safe. It's fine. So it was very much like...
Yeah, but keeping you from actually... I mean, immediately, yes, keeping you from doing the physical thing is important and is immediate. But you needed more than that. You needed actual help. You needed a doctor. You needed professionals. And that wasn't offered to you at the time.
At the time. Yeah. So all that happened was a big hullabaloo.
Yeah.
For me. It was a big turning point. I wrote... And that's when I also wrote that.
The note.
It wasn't a suicide note. It was kind of like just my feelings, but it was basically a suicide note.
It was like 7 pages of a suicide note.
At the end, I say like...
It was a lot of feelings packed into a very short amount of pages.
I didn't plan on showing anybody, but,
I've seen it.
Yeah. Because I found it, and then I realized later that I think other people should see it, so I posted it on Reddit or something too, because...
Well, yeah, because you're showing how you can be, not to steal your shine, but how you can be in such a dark place and in such a, in the moment you were solidified and like, this is what I need to do, this is what I want to do, and yet overcome.
Because it was that moment.
Yeah.
It was, I sat there, the letter is 7 pages, like you said,
Mm-hmm.
but...
I don't know how I remember that.
Yeah, it was about that, though.
Yeah.
But it took a long time to write because it wasn't all at once.
Yeah,
I stopped. I took a nap. Not a nap, but I laid in bed.
Yeah.
And
you rested.
And then I came back to it, and I had to keep writing, but ultimately it was kind of a character suicide because at the end I write how nobody likes TJ, and that's my nickname growing up as a kid.
Mm.
I felt that like nobody wanted me.
So I'll become
Thomas, right? And that was. I don't really feel that way anymore, but anyway, so that was one of the hardest times. I bring that up, to show that, your podcast about overcoming trauma. It took a long time. I went to a therapist, mm-hmm. I went several therapists. It was therapist after therapist after therapist. Right?
Well, you have to find the right fit for you.
But in the military, especially, a lot of them were religious.
Yeah.
And it was automatically disdain in my mouth.
Well, especially with the trauma you suffered from childhood, you're not going to be receptive to that. And
at the time, I was very much a atheist. I joined the Satanic Temple. I was very against anything Christianity.
You were very closed off to it.
Super closed.
Again, we were just talking about this the other day, how even sometimes now we have to kind of pull ourselves back from the hurt, wounded, bitter part of us, and the part that says, well, as long as they're not using it against anyone, they are entitled to their beliefs. That's hard to do when it's been used against you as a weapon.
Yeah.
It's not easy.
I'm still coming to terms with.
I know. You're getting there. It's a
there.
process.
Yeah.
It's a journey. I say that in the podcast too. Everybody's path is different.
But I found the right therapist.
Yeah.
And she kind of made me realize that I was in the wrong place. Both in my relationship, because it kind of made me realize who my ex-wife was. Yeah. I put her on a pedestal, and I just was always so people-pleasing. Whatever they needed, I was to keep them happy. And kind of opened my eyes to that. And then I started to realize my own worth, because I was kind of a downfall when we decided to end things. I clung to the title of husband and father and things that were
your identity.
That was who I was. And then I realized that I wasn't that. I mean, I am that now again, but I'm just saying.
Yes. But
that's not all I am.
Yeah, you had to find Thomas in that.
Right. And she helped me through that. So I know therapy can be it takes a while, but when you find the right one, it really helps. I also was on a lot of medication, which was good. I think that at the time the medication was life-saving. I think that it would help me bring down the emotions and help me temper things.
Yeah.
Because I was very angry. I was very...
Made it manageable,
but then at a certain point, it just hindered me at that. I couldn't feel my emotions. I couldn't...
You were more numb than...
I was more... I just was a blob.
Yeah.
That's how I felt. Like I didn't know what to do with myself.
Yeah.
Right? And so I slowly started to kind of... I wouldn't recommend it, but I weaned myself off of the medication, and I don't need it anymore. And I was on a very high dose of medications.
I love the disclaimer. I know you listened to her episode because you listen to all my episodes.
Yeah.
But Catherine had said the same thing. She actually quit cold turkey. She didn't wean herself off. And she was like, I don't recommend doing this. Talk to a doctor first.
So my dosage was so high that if I missed a day, I get the brain zaps. And a lot of people don't know what that is, but like, it would feel like electricity was hitting my brain.
Yeah.
And it's like, and you couldn't think. It's like... It hurts your head.
You were very, very dependent.
I was so dependent on it because it was such a high dosage. And because I tried several of them, I was on it for years. And so when I finally came off of it and doing a lot of meditation, honestly, meditation really helped.
Yeah.
I did a lot of guided meditations on YouTube, and then I kind of learned how to do it myself. And I think the most powerful one I had was right after we completely separated, Amanda, my ex-wife and I. And I didn't want to say names.
You're fine.
But I meditated. I was in my own room at that point, and I meditated, and I saw my childhood self, and I just gave a hug. I was just bawling. It was very emotional.
Yeah.
I think that was one of the biggest turning points where I could just accept myself.
Yeah, because you were starting to heal that inner you.
And so I was just holding kid me in my mind. He was crying. I was crying. Like, it was just...
Yeah. Emotional but beautiful.
Yeah.
The inner child needed that.
And now, I'm at the point where I am thriving in my... You could ask the children, I'm happy all the time. I bring a lot of joy. I feel like I'm tooting my own horn.
You're not tooting your own horn. You can have confidence in yourself, Thomas.
Yeah. But now I'm always singing. There's always a smile on my face. And...
Yeah. You definitely are one of the, not to toot my own horn, but one of the lights of the household, as parents should be. We're what help guide the rest of us.
Right.
You are definitely the life of the house, the life of the party, so to speak. You sing with the kids, you dance with them, you bring the joy. But the only thing I would correct is you saying I'm happy all the time. Because
I'm not.
I know, yeah. But I'm just to point out that you're not happy all the time, because no one is.
Right.
But when you're not happy, you manage it in a way that's not only better for you, but models to our children.
Right.
How they need to handle all emotions, and that there's not an expectation to be happy all the time. But you are much happier than you used to be.
Also, adding to my healing, honestly, I don't, not to just toot your horn,
God,
but you. It. Okay.
We know.
Okay. But
I appreciate the recognition. I do.
But, coming into my life...
Make me blush on my own podcast.
But, you kind of came into my life and helped me find me.
Yeah.
And see who I am and see who I'm worth. And that's, tattoos, if people see it on video, but, like, my Thor one, well, it's Mjolnir, it's not Thor. But I have Mjolnir on my arm because I never felt worthy.
Yeah.
And then Avengers 2, I'm watching it. And there's the Thor who's always, they call him Fat Thor in the movie. I hate that term.
Yeah, it's very weird.
I hate the term, but like that's they call it the lazy Thor or whatever it is.
Yeah.
But he picks up Mjolnir and he's like, I'm still worthy. And I was like, damn.
Yeah. Because you don't have to be worthy in a way that everyone else would deem you worthy.
Yeah, and that really hit. Like, I was in the theater like, whoa.
Yeah.
Right. So that's why I had to get it tattooed, right?
The message was received.
Yeah. And my other arm has a phoenix, and it's similar to mental health because, right out of the mental health hospital, I wasn't 100%.
Yeah.
But I was in such better place.
Yeah.
That I was like, this is me. I'm done. I'm rising from the ashes.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely is symbolic, and I think, especially with mental health, a lot of people connect to that symbolism because sometimes we really do feel like we've been burnt to ashes, and we've rose from it. And I think you're one of those stories because similar to myself, you've experienced so many different types of traumas, sometimes overlapping.
Yeah.
I think it really wasn't even until you left the military, or really even until your first marriage ended, that you really started healing from even some of the childhood traumas. So you just continued moving throughout life and throughout new traumas without even healing from the first ones.
Yeah.
It's a lot for a person, which is why I'm saying, like, with going from the military then to going to a home life where it's still a mental, like, warfare, you just kept getting... But you came back from it, and that's what's important. I think... I don't know how to say this. You're like the perfect example of that, and so am I. We've talked about this. I've actually done an episode on it, how healing is not linear.
Right.
Because you still have people-pleasing tendencies, and you still have the need or knee-jerk reaction to put people before yourself. Even in speaking of your ex-wife and that marriage, you're still trying to, at least to me, in a way, protect her and what people might think of her. Because you're not, like, there's never an ill intention from you. You were wounded, but you still understand that that person has their own reality.
Right.
And their own perspective. I think it's a really good quality to have. I think sometimes you still need to be able to tell your story without thinking about the other person. But I love that about you. I love that you care about other people and how what you say, even in telling your story, might affect them. Yeah. It's commendable.
Thank you. I mean, I could keep going on and on about different traumas that happened, but
I know.
We're already at 48 minutes.
So since you're watching the timer, I think you've done pretty good in, like...
Summarizing it all?
Yeah, and I'm definitely going to have you on again. January is my month of men, so I have...
Excuse me.
Yeah. I have, like, 4 or 5 male guests coming on because I think it's really important. We've discussed this before, to talk about men's health. You'll be the first release, just so you know how important you are. But, in wrapping up, what would be... I mean, you've definitely talked about, like, how therapy is important, how medication can be important, and, like, we mentioned the human design, so I think it can be a blend for people. But what is your, like, tips or words of encouragement for people who aren't sure where to start on their healing?
I was kind of thrown into the healing.
Yeah.
Because of, the ideations and stuff like that. I think it's important to not let it go. Like when you have, small ideations or something like that. I think you want to
Mhm.
explore, and I think a lot of my nothing really happened until I was in crisis mode.
Right.
I think what's really important is maybe if you were starting to feel like you are thinking about even it starts off as jokes, and you don't really think anything of it, right? Oh yeah, well, when I kill myself, it'll be, or like it's fine, I'll kill myself tomorrow. It's not a big deal. But these are things that like, haha, we're funny, but like they're not.
Saying it for a reason, yeah.
It's not, and as much as I'm not a fan of the military. I did go to a suicide awareness class,
Mm-hmm.
and I think it's important that if you're not, because a lot of times you might not be strong enough when you're the one when you having the ideations. If you have family or friends maybe who have who have symptoms of having that suicidal ideations, I think it's important that you reach out and talk to them directly.
Right.
I think beating around the bush does not help.
Mm-mm.
When you're like, oh, how do you feel about, like, no, are you thinking about killing yourself?
Yeah.
It's a very direct at maybe being autistic, and maybe I am very direct about things, but it's something that, like, there's no beating around the bush with that.
Yeah.
I think it's important for everyone to look out for each other. I think it's probably my most community. I think finding there's so many different modalities. I love how you use that word all the time now.
Yeah.
There's so many different. Finding the right one is essential. I think I had a lifeline with hobbies while I was going through it. I picked up the guitar while I was playing, and like I felt the most myself when I had the guitar in my hands.
Yeah.
And like just when I was feeling anxious, things like having a pick, and just putting it in my pocket and just rubbing it was like.
It was enough.
It was enough to keep me going.
Yeah.
And so like finding little things like that is really, really important.
Yeah.
I know you don't, when you're depressed or anxious, like the last thing you want to do is do something. Like you just want to sit there and be a bump on a log. Like you don't want to do anything. But finding something that brings just a little bit of joy can turn everything around.
Just explore. Keep trying all the different modalities, so to speak, until you find what works for you.
I know meditating is hard, but honestly, meditating is amazing.
Yeah, I preach about it on the podcast. Meditating and journaling are my top two for myself. But.
Right. For me, I talking about human design, I have a defined throat, so do you, but like talking out loud for me is how I kind of process. Mm-hmm. And a lot of times I don't even know what I'm thinking or what I'm feeling.
Just talking.
I have to talk to know.
Yeah. And
I know a lot of people are kind of similar to that, and like
kind of hearing your own voice say it out loud is like therapeutic. I don't remember which episode it was, but it was one of myself, and that's what I said, is that like that storytelling, my friend Mandy is the same way. That's literally her whole thing right now in coaching is storytelling, telling your own personal story. And that's what I say in my episode is like, I don't care if it's writing it out,
right,
telling a friend, telling your therapist, telling your partner, or saying it alone when nobody's around. But I think really that speaking what you're thinking or what you've been through is very useful. It's very healing in and of itself. But.
Yeah, well, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
For letting me just talk for an hour.
You didn't just talk, though. You shared your story, and I know that parts of your story are going to be things that people can relate to, or some of the things like things that helped.
Yeah.
And then like not even where you think you were giving a tip, or it's going to be helpful for people. I've wanted you on since like the month I started, so I'm glad we finally did it.
Yeah.
So thank you.